Good morning, dear friends, participants of the Marathon for the Good of the World. We continue our program. That's the time for the morning Srimad-Bhagavatam. And we have a wonderful guest, Gaura Priya Mataji, and she will read the canto 8. I will introduce her a little bit. Gaura Priya Mataji does service in She is in charge of the department of the service to Shri Rakta Govinda, and she's also responsible for the organization of the festival School of Leaders. Also, she organizes public programs, and during 8 years, Gaura Priya Mataji is one of the vegetarian cafe, Govinda, and Mataji Gaura Priya, host of a program, I Don't Eat Anybody. So, Gaura Priya Mataji, thank you for finding time. Welcome to our marathon, and the floor is yours. Good morning. Thank you for this introduction. I'm shy. Dear friends, I'm so lucky today because I have this opportunity, and I am quite nervous because this is the first time I read Srimad-Bhagavatam publicly, and I'd like to say a few words about the Holy Scriptures, and because it is Mahabhagavatam or Mahapurana, because it's the only scripture that has 12 proofs and 12 witnesses like absolute truth or 12 very serious aspects of life, and they have scientific proof through a transcendental sound and through a personal experience, and also through an analysis. So 12 proofs and 12 reasons to call Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahapurana. And with our not so high intellect, it's very complex to get into contact with such holy scripture. And if something gets unveiled today, it's actually due to the mercy of our senior devotees. I would like to glorify and also make a prayer, like a Gajendra prayer, but I want to make the prayer to Valmiki Prabhu and to thank Mandakini Mataji because she supports such amazing projects. Because during the pandemic and the coronavirus, some senior devotees even say that Russia, particularly Russia, will save the whole world. So I would like to ask for blessings so that we make a contribution so that this positive process, so that we can get over this pandemic. And I ask for your blessings for me to be able to speak such subject. If you are in Concord, please put the likes or the pluses so that I feel your support. And maybe you don't have to put the likes. I will feel that virtually. So today we are going to look at Canto 8 of this wonderful book, Srimad-Bhagavatam, and sometimes we look at these bold pictures, illustrations in these books, and we make our impressions. So Canto 8 and Chapter 3, text 32. And I will read that text for you. Gajendra had been forcefully captured by the crocodile in the water and was feeling acute pain, but when he saw that Narayana, wielding his disc, was coming in the sky on the back of Garuda, he immediately took a lotus flower in his trunk, and with great difficulty due to his painful condition, he uttered the following words: "O my Lord, Narayana, Master of the Universe, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you." It's a very touching episode, and a purport of Srila Prabhupada. The king of the elephants so much wanted to see, so the king of the elephants so much wanted to see the Supreme Personality of God. So when he saw in the sky the Lord approaching, he expressed his obeisances to him. And the devotees do not consider this situation dangerous because it gives him an opportunity to ardently selflessly forgetting himself to pray to God. So for devotee, a danger is not worse than a luck. When a devotee encounters a difficulty, a dire strait, he or she takes it as a great mercy of the Lord. It gives an opportunity to direct his thought and his prayer to the Lord and not to get distracted with anything else. And so the mercy of the Supreme Lord consists allowing the devotee, and this dangerous situation is a result of his own making of the devotee. And a devotee sees it as an opportunity to address the Lord. And if a devotee lives in consciousness like that, then liberation and going back to Godhead is guaranteed for him. This is confirmed on the example of Gajendra, who was ardently praying to the Lord and then got the opportunity to go back to the Lord. It's such a touching story. We see that Srila Prabhupada, in such a small text which we could actually memorize, he outlined three very important moments. First of all, when some dangerous situations or some difficulties come into our life, devotees should not be afraid of them, because especially these dangers makes us concentrate and address the Lord. Secondly, we need to take the danger as mercy, because it gives us an opportunity to look at the world in a different way, and the paradigm changes, the paradigm shifts, and in this situation we know that no one can help us, only the Lord. And the third accent that Srila Prabhupada has made, and we shouldn't blame the Supreme Lord because of this difficult situation, because we are the cause of all these bad situations. And then Srila Prabhupada makes a conclusion: if a person lives in this mindset, he will be guaranteed the return to the Godhead. This is actually shown as on the example of the king of the elephants, Gajendra. Gaj is elephant and Indra is the king. Let's analyze this verse and let's look at our life. And in principle, each one of us in the childhood like the fairy tales, and for the Russian people, the actual why we like the fairy tales, because there the good always wins over the evil, and we like this result. And the fairy tales that have to do with the Supreme Lord are called leelas or pastimes, and these are the amazing procedure of relationship when personalities get into the leelas or into pastimes. There's a very special emotions, new feelings, but subconsciously, since we know that it's a pastime, just a game, just a leela, it will end up well. So the leelas of the Supreme Lord illustrate different emotional states with the right ending. So because in these leelas, the most perfect, the highest level personality participates, then unconditionally the ending of these pastimes and the behavior of all the participants are perfect. And that's why studying holy scriptures like Srimad-Bhagavatam, we learn how a wise man came out of different difficult and complex situations. And right now Mandakini Mataji has chosen this text for me, and it's very actual for the period of pandemic and of the self-confinement. And right away we will learn how to go through such situations. And I also want to say we learn about the world not through the scientific research, but through Holy Scriptures, because Holy Scriptures give us an allegorical examples on which we get experience. Because if we take material world and it's studied by mathematics, physics, biology, and in all aspects, in full aspects, it could split the whole world up down to the molecules and the functions, the wavelength fluctuations, and all other parameters. They can can describe any phenomena, any event, and how they're going to develop. It's a material platform, but then there'll be an intellectual platform, a mind's platform, and the mind studies and the relationship between people. The laws of psychology can tell us about it on the mind's platform, but a more subtle platform is the intelligence, and it's a more profound relationship with the world and between the people. And it's psychiatry, psychoanalysis looks at it, and no formulas, no mathematics will help us draw any conclusions. So it's on the level of subconsciousness, and it's with the help of a lot of complex techniques and methods. And then the next level is the false ego, the level of the false ego, with which we identify ourselves with the true ego or false ego. And scientific religion could help us to see, to study, and also to change the world on that level. And going from the false conditioning and false identification to the true one, we get it through reading of holy scriptures. And if we have a lot of emotions, then becomes our habit, the second nature, and our character changes, and everything in life changes. So these leelas, these pastimes, give us a great impression, and it's a guarantee that on our level of consciousness there'll be positive changes, and then we will introduce them into life. So this picture of life, this leela between Narayana and King Gajendra, gives us a great impression. Let's look at that leela once again, and if we read the text, the verses before that text and after that, we can actually understand the situation. And as I said, Gajendra was the king of elephants, and he had a lot of subjects, and they loved him, they respected him, and Gajendra was a bit full of himself. He was quite up in his head about himself. He was quite proud of himself. He was walking through the planet. He tore, picked and plucked some flowers, and he indulged himself into enjoying the planet, enjoying everything around him with these queens. And one day he got into a lake, and the lakes described in the Bhagavatam are full of the nectar, and the water there is very sweet and very dense. So the elephant, the Gajendra, got into the lake, into the water like that with his queens. He started to enjoy himself, and this pride narrows down, and it doesn't allow him just to focus on himself. And the elephant didn't even think about, because he was the king, and he didn't even imagine that there could be some other creatures, some other personalities that inhabitate this lake. So in this relaxing moment, from the bottom up, a crocodile emerged, and he beat the elephant. The battle ensued between them, and he thought that win over the crocodile in an instant, but actually the events went in a different way. And the battle ended. The battle continued for 100 years, and when the elephant lost all his energy, all his power, and he lost his faith. And there's a saying that in the trenches of the war, there are no atheists. So when there is a difficult situations, we start addressing the Supreme Lord, and here the elephant, already bleeding and trying to overcome his pain, he raised his prayers to the Supreme Lord, and in the verse he humbly called for the Lord. He offered his prayers to him, and the Lord appeared on the back of his carrier Garuda with great speed, and then the elephant offered to the Lord a flower of the lotus. And so when the Lord accepted this lotus, he touched the elephant, and then the elephant became a four-handed form, just like the Supreme Lord. And since the crocodile at that time was holding the elephant by the paw, he also got liberated because of the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you can say that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters our life, everybody gets benediction and gets liberation. The elephant got the four-handed form and went into the spiritual world, and the crocodile got his desire fulfilled. And we will go back to some more profound story of this story, why not everybody addresses the Supreme Personality of Godhead in difficult times. And the answer is very simple, is such that the elephant in his previous life was a very great king, a very exceptional king in the Dumna. And this king ruled his country. Everybody was very pleased with him, very proud of him. And at a particular time, as the scriptures describe and as they instruct us, the king started to prepare to depart this world, and he went to the forest to focusedly worship the Lord. So Vedic culture says to us, prescribes that we should circumstances show our respect when sadhu comes to us, but the king was so taken away, so carried away with worshiping the Lord, violated this prescription. So sadhu was, and he said, in the next life you will be working like elephant. So in next life you will be reborn and reincarnated as an elephant. So the king started to pray to this and plead to this with this sage, the sadhu, to be merciful. And sadhu gave in. He softened up to the king, and he said there will be a good realization, and you will see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you at the end will go back to the Godhead. So at the time, the elephant, when he was leaving the world, he was addressing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because in his previous life he had this experience. This credit of boon from his previous life allowed him and the service that he did in the previous life, and these fruits will be saved, and these are the guarantee that when we are engaged in the Supreme, it will always stay with us in difficult times, will bear good fruit. So the crocodile was Gandharma in his previous life, and he liked to be pleasurable and to pass his times with his queens, with his companions, and they entered some river. He thought it was the foot one of his companions, but it was actually Sadhu who was chanting Gayatri mantra, and Sadhu was very angered, and he also cursed the Gandharva, and Gandharva was reincarnated as a crocodile, and the elephant and the crocodile ended up in the same water, and each got their own reward, and they all reached the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And his prayers in the difficult situations, and he goes back to God. So it's an amazing story, and now we can think about what will predispose us to cultivate this strong faith, and because of what this faith becomes so profound and so strong, so that at the last moment, during the last moment of our life, we do not focus on our children or our loans that we took from the bank, but we address the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the lectures of Radhanatha Maharaja, he says that our faith is composed of two aspects. One is knowledge, and another one is our conviction. Conviction and our faith that the Lord will not leave us, He will not forsake us. And in order for us to develop our faith that will save us in any situation, and will make our life more fulfilled and more complete, we should get the knowledge, and the knowledge should be authoritative. And that's why we study Srimad-Bhagavatam, and we learn how the ways of our wise men, the sages, how they act in different situations. And when we have serious knowledges, and when we get them through the books, they get transformed into conviction, into faith, and that allows us to act decisively in complex situations. And also decisiveness, you can split into two components. One is decisiveness to act in a certain way and to do auspicious deeds in order to develop our path to the Lord. And another aspect of the decisiveness, to act in order not to commit inauspicious deeds. The surprising thing is that the decisiveness to do the auspicious deeds is obtained very easily. When we associate with the pure devotees, we get those realizations, and we acquire this taste, and this pushes us further to develop our devotional service further. And when we get this new taste, or the old tastes get pushed out and get replaced with the new taste. So decisiveness. And it's interesting when you look at it from neurophysiology, any act that we make forms as a certain concentration in our brain that will allow us, when there is a certain signal, there will be the whole system of signals, and as a stereotype will react to a certain event. So when we listen to the Holy Scriptures, we get a certain impression, and these bright impressions, they will make us to look at this tale and listen to it again and analyze and ask others about it, and it gets in motion this process of this new neurological connections in our brain. And the more often we address this new neurological connection, the more connections it creates. And the old ones get pushed out, and these old neurological connections get destroyed, and gradually. And even if we take an example, I just remember when an elderly person, when all the relatives die, and they take this old person from the village and move him to the city, to an apartment, he starts to live in a new surroundings, and he very quickly becomes sick and leaves the body, and it is connected because of the old house and the old apartment was connected with a lot of events, the little path that he took to go to the grocery shop, and it's connected with the friend, the neighbor, with whom they had some nice conversations, this powerful core in his brain that gave him vitality to this old man. With the moving to the new apartment, a new place, it doesn't give any new connections, new support, and this new core doesn't get formed yet, and because there are no bright impressions unless he's in the family of the devotees, and that's why this destruction of the old core and not even the new core not emerging and not getting strong becomes a reason of destruction of somebody's life. And so the new impressions, the bright impressions, give us the new impulse for reading the pictures, and it looks like a tale. And it's very important, the association with the devotees. When we all gather together with the devotees, especially now, if we have a goal to share our realizations,
то, к чему он пришел через десятилетия своей жизни, чтобы произошла какая-то яркая реализация, чтобы мы что-то вспомнили, чтобы так щелкнуло. Плюс нужно время, нужен опыт, нужны страдания. И когда мы открыто друг с другом делимся, то другой, поскольку эта эмоция яркая, он ее перенимает. И представьте, если мы в кругу, например, где 30-40 человек поделили своими впечатлениями,
share with others, and because somebody shares a bright emotion, the other person listening also gets this taste, and can relate and can share his bright emotion or impression. And for example, when we gather in a group of 30 to 40 people, and when we share our impressions with each other, and this emotion has entered into us, and so that all of us, each one of us, as if lived 1 million years, and maybe someone's because they suffered 10 years and they got this very bright emotion and impression, and somebody else listened to realization in splits of the second, and they don't need to live through the tens and tens of years to get a realization like that. So the association with the devotees and reading Srimad-Bhagavatam gives these amazing qualities to pass these realizations to each other, so that the picture of the world changes completely. So the behavior of the elephant here is so bold and so impressive that each one of us could acquire this situation really deep into our heart, this difficult situation, and how we should act in such a situation. Of course, this prayer will not be formed right away. You need to study, you need to try, you need to test. And we know from Hanaka Maharaja, in order to as a foundation of profound faith is this study, and then the conviction, or knowledge and conviction and faith. When we practically implement this knowledge, and it comes from the decisiveness of making efforts that lead us to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to know how to act and make decisive not to do anything that leads us astray from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are very important. And here we see that Jendra addressed with prayer the Lord, and he appeared right away. And Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that all the devotees that share this mindset and will lead their life in this mindset, with the right attitude to the complex situations, the Lord will come and will take them away to the. And now I just remembered one of the tales. Akbar and Bigbar, when they argued, and Akbar was a Muslim, and he said to Birbal, what kind of God you have that always has when you have some complex situation? What he is one of the boys. Birbal was a very, very wise man, and he was the counselor of Akbar, and Akbar was a very wise ruler. And Bigbar said he just constructed the situation when without the science you could so when Akbar conducted a meeting with the ministries and a window and in the garden there was a swimming pool. The nannies were walking there with his newly born grandson, and Akbar sees in the window that the grandson falls away from the hands of the nanny and falls down right into this swimming pool. And he finishes this meeting right away and immediately and jumps out the window, jumps into the swimming pool, and then saves the grandson. And he sees that it's a doll. And he looks at his counselor and he understands that when the Lord loves his devotee, he comes back, to save his devotee right away. He doesn't give this task to anybody, any of his subordinates. So the more our faith is strong, to whom we believe in that we will find our salvation. And if we believe that we will get sick, then we will probably have a life and tragic illness. And Srila Prabhupada says that the most important minutes of our life, He will come and He will do everything necessary. And He will pour that mercy over us, and this mercy will manifest itself. And these complex situations allow us to get away from ourselves and look at the picture as a whole. And we saw that the world is wider than we thought, and in difficult situations when we see that everything we imagined was the reality is wider. So when Gajendra ended up in a difficult situation, and when he addressed the Lord, when the Lord came, the Gajendra stopped looking at the crocodile as his enemy. And if to look at this Leela with the elephant Gajendra, we could notice that the elephant Gajendra conduct this battle with the material energy, and the elephant conducted this battle on the soil. He will have won over the crocodile right away because he's not in his milieu and his surroundings like we are in the material world. We're not in our milieu and not our atmosphere. And here we can only drown in the material world. Sometimes we could go up to the surface for a little bit, and then we continue this battle again, and we go down again and drown. Only when we address the Supreme Personality of Godhead, He could help us and lead us to the safe place. And that way, I wanted to finish this review in what we believe and what we have faith. That will save us, and let's show our intelligence, and let's study not the laws of suffering, but the laws of happiness that the Supreme Personality of Godhead rules over the world. Haribol. So if you have questions and if I have qualifications, then I will be very pleased to answer. Thank you very much. There was a question right before the lecture. So when
да, был уже у Всеволода вопрос буквально в начале лекции, когда, видимо, он почувствовал страдания слона Гаджендры, и он спрашивает, а как можно вообще не страдать?
How can you,
на самом деле, совсем не страдать тому, что нельзя, потому что
in fact, not to suffer at all is not possible. Because some people even like to suffer, and sometimes we end up in some difficult situation, and we retell it to our kin, to our friends. We have this strong taste for this suffering. We talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. So we can, because each event we can interpret in the way we want. So we can interpret it. I don't wanna talk about suffering. I don't have any realizations about. There are some people who talk about how their relatives die. This devotee, told me
я,
how
конечно,
her
не хочу
son has
говорить
left the body,
по
and
поводу страданий. У меня
I
нет
observed her.
реализации, как
She
вот у
acted
некоторых
in a
погибают, конечно,
very
родственники.
decent
У меня есть
way,
одна
but and I don't want to wish, and I think
преданная, хорошая
difficult in how
знакомая, у нее
you
сын оставил
transform
тело.
this
Я когда
suffering, this
наблюдала, как
type of
она себя
suffering.
вела,
Thank you.
себя очень
I don't
достойно.
want. I want to remind our
Ну,
viewers
я
that
пока такого
you
события не
write your
пережила и не
questions and
хочу
commentaries in the
переживать
chat.
его.
Okay,
Боюсь,
next
что не
question.
протяну. То есть вот это вот реальные страдания, как
Devotees
их
can
преобразовать,
address. Can they
это,
address the
конечно, очень
Lord
сложно.
with the request to
Спасибо
ease
большое. Я хочу
our
напомнить
sufferings?
дорогим зрителям, чтобы писали
Yes,
в чат
of course,
вопросы.
we're not at that level. We should adequately assess ourselves. We have material desires. So our goal at that stage to connect our life with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and if we ask Him about the money or a husband, it's a very good act, and it's a good fact that we actually recognize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that He's there above us, and we recognize Him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why we should not ask for something really bad. So in this context, there is always a question, and why is the soul identifying itself with the false? I like the deliberations of one of Maharajas, who said that love is the act of freedom, because the Lord loves us so much, and we know that if the child doesn't make mistakes, then how is he going to live his life if he doesn't learn anything? Then if he doesn't follow this, so love manifests in this independence of us independently deciding how we're going to live our life. Are we going to live it with the Lord or without the Lord? So the life in the material world is without the Lord. I also like saying from the excerpt from the scriptures that said that the soul has a svarupa, the subtle body. Svarupa is defined by the consciousness of the soul. Subtle body is constant. It's not changeable. But the consciousness could travel and could change it, could immerse. So the soul is always in Satchitananda, this eternal state. But is immersed into this material world, then the soul is in some sort of trance, as if we were sitting before the TV set, and we're not interested in anything. We're in some kind of trance, and we're just looking at it in a detached way. And we just need something to take us away. So the question from Alana, please tell me, I ate meat for 25 years, and then because of Guru's mercy, I stopped eating meat. But for these 25 years, I'll have to pay off, and or my karma, this karma could be burned. Of course, you can burn this karma. You don't need to suffer another 25 years. And I many times said that bhakti, when we pure devotee, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes to us through the spiritual master, then the spiritual master puts the seed of bhakti into our heart, and bhakti is the devotional service. And this personality is so transcendental, so compassionate, full of love and creativity, so that when this person looks at us and it looks that and sees that we are already coming to the holy scriptures, you don't need to go through the sufferings. Since we address the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the spiritual master takes out that karma, and if we take steps to develop our spiritual nature, no one will return our karma to us. But if we hit the brakes again and we slow down, and sometimes too good a spiritual life makes us relax and not concentrate on the Supreme Personality of God, then there will be some obstacles given to us, so that we again sober up and go back to the spiritual world. Why the yogis, the mystics, go to Himalayas to meditate, enter the cold waters. So when they immerse even into a thought that the water is cold, they immediately freeze up, and this cold actually takes them away from the real flow and concentrate on the internal flows and meditate. For us, these difficult circumstances make us go away, refocus from the material world and immerse into the spiritual world. And if you do sadhana bhakti, you don't have to pay up for the previous deeds. Thank you. Canto 8 is about exploring Vaishnava Bhakti. And the question is about Lord Shiva and why do they ask for help from Lord Shiva? And why, when exploring the milk ocean, when the poison comes first and then the gifts? Why this sequence? And why and how can we apply this knowledge in life? Okay, I answer Lord Shiva is a very mystic personality and it's Krishna's side, and in this material world he comes first and Vishnu look and this look of Vishnu is Shiva and he annihilates the material world. He is the best devotee because he drank up this poison and it stayed in his throat. And why this nectar revealed later when this ocean was explored more. So when we are in the material world, when we do some austerity and then we get some gifts. So the principle of development of devotional service, we receive some poison and then we get the gifts. So first the austerity, willful and conscious austerity, that brings us joy, and then we'll get the good gifts. So in the material world, the demigods are not in spiritual world, they're in material world. So the material world has duality. So there'll be some scent of some not so good things happening. So beforehand you get the poison, something bad, and then something good, the gifts. So first we go into a willful and conscious austerity, and then we get the nectar. Thank you. I have another question. What is the realization? How can you understand that it's a spiritual realization? We very often open up Holy Scriptures, and I remember when I was reading the Bible, after many years in your heart, you get the sound, ding, and you understand that you're not at the theory level, but there's this impression that there are no doubts. Like Srila Prabhupada gave us an example. When we ate, we don't need explanations whether we ate or not. We know that we ate. So the realization, when the realization come, we could actually tell about it to the other person. But if he didn't have realization like that, he wouldn't understand. He says, yes, I heard about it, and I know about it, but if a person didn't feel it, then in the heart, it's a different thing. And it's a very strong impression when it gave away from our heart, and it's not even called operational memory. It's a very strong impression that entered our heart and became our nature. And based on these impressions, a habit is formed, and then stereotype and character, and how Bhaktivedanta Maharaja says, a destiny is formed, a fate. Thank you. There are two questions from Vladimir. In Srimad-Bhagavatam, in one of the Leelas, Krishna raises his prayer Shiva as a Lord, and in another chapter, and Lord Shiva raises his prayer to Krishna as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, in detail, I will not be able to say it in detail. My husband loves the stories about Shiva, but I can say one thing, that Krishna is so multifaceted. He has multiple images, and he takes the position of a child in some leelas, in friendly leelas, and some friends ride on his back. And we respect and love Shiva. Shiva has a subordinate position, and glorifying Lord Shiva and Krishna, his devotee, he can say prayers to him. Thank you.
Еще один вопрос.
And one more question. As a rule, you said in the lecture, when the difficult situations come, not everybody raise prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let alone when the good things happen, we even completely forget about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how to be in the prayer mindset and remember that everything depends on the Lord, and how to be always in such a prayer mindset. And Srila Prabhupada recommended to us 2 hours a day to read the books. And in Sadhana Bhakti, we observe the rules and prescriptions. It's not a spontaneous prayer, but we need prescriptions and rules. And to be in sadhana bhakti, and in order to remember and never forget Krishna, you need to observe the rules and prescriptions. And rules and prescriptions are described in the nectar of devotion and Shravanam, listening to the devotees, lectures, and read the books of Srila Prabhupada. And we shouldn't just read the books, but we should actually analyze and how can we implement it in our lives. And it says that Shravanam is only happened when, as a result of reading some scriptures or listening to the lecture, we have a inspiration to change something in our life. So we need to read, listen, and practice. And then we remember about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What we listen to and what we contact with, we acquire these qualities. This material world is penetrated with all the gunas, passion, and ignorance. And if we get in contact with cold, our hand becomes cold. So everything we comes into contact with, we will acquire these qualities. If we read a lot, if we eat prasadam, if we associate with the devotees, we will never, even for a minute, forget about Krishna, Supreme Personality. Thank you. Anna asks, do the demigods accumulate karma? Of course they do. And we know a lot of stories about Indra. Although he was a good ruler, he was always dismissed from his throne. It's a very difficult situation. And it means that the karma comes out. They are more powerful than us, but you know that they dream about going back to Earth, because there where the planets where the demigods live, there are no Mahaprasadam. So here, when something happens here, they pour the flowers onto us, and they look at it. Even they fly here and even steal some prasadam, and of course they accumulate karma. Thank you. Yulia Loginova asks, to surrender to Krishna means the absence of my will. Does it mean that I do not choose how to act? What does the choice mean, and how is it correlated with the control of senses? Surrender means, the freedom we have. We are jivas, living beings. It's a border energy of Krishna. The whole world and everything that's there are different energies of Krishna. It's internal energy, it's the spiritual world, and the border energy is these are jivas, and also material external energy is the material world. So the soul is always eternally conditioned. Why? Because we're very small, and we always go astray somewhere, either into the spiritual world or in the material world. We're eternally conditioned, and our choice is what to depend from. In any case, we depend on something. Sometimes we depend on the appetite, on our mind, or on the weather, but we can depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's our choice, and our will is not violated here. Thank you. I will open the next question now. Anatoly has an interesting question. Why Indra is often consumed? Is it his karma then? Indra is very good and is much better than us. He's a great ruler, but often some of his qualities are being sarcastically shown. Not just for some strange reason, but actually to show us that even if the superior, of course, any inhabitant of the earth, any inhabitant of the earth, with the exception of Srila Prabhupada with spiritual masters, we do not come into any comparison with the demigods. Of course, just ordinary people in comparison with the demigod. The demigods are like the ministers in comparison to the ordinary people. Of course, they do mistakes, but
с определенной
not
мыслью,
for us to
чтобы вы
laugh.
видели в
They're
красивых
shown like that
этих серьезных
sarcastically in
лилах
serious leelas
какие-то
like that
уроки
for us
поучения.
to get very serious lessons. Thank
Спасибо
you.
большое. У нас
There's
еще
a
один
question from
вопрос,
the past. It's a very
поднимается из
long.
прошлого.
Marina is asking, please tell,
Длинный, постараюсь
is there
вопрос
something in
сократить.
Srimad-Bhagavatam that said
Марина
that
спрашивает,
Jada
скажите,
Bharata
а
is
если в Шримад-Бхагаватам
attached to
позднее,
the
что за
little
грехи
deer
совершил Джада
and then
Бхарата,
it was
и он привязался
reincarnated
к
in the
олененку,
body
родился в
of a
теле
human being?
оленя,
Is there a
опять
development
в
of
теле
the
человека
events
вопрос.
that he left
Если
his
нет, может
family,
ли быть
the
такое
family,
развитие
the
событий связано
children,
с тем,
and
что он
went
оставил
into
семью, детей, предков и ушел
renunciation?
во
Was the
отречение?
cause of
Как бы стал причиной
their
их
suffering?
страданий?
They were attached to
Они же
him
были к нему
because,
привязаны.
namely,
Ведь
exactly
именно родительские
the
нежные
parents'
чувства в нем
feelings in
и
him
пробудились к
were
олененку.
reborn
А мы ведь уже
when
знаем, что
he
мысли
had these
те, кто нас
emotions
не
and feelings
отпустил,
towards the
возвращают
little dear child.
нас в
Does it mean
материальное
that the
тело.
people
И так
who didn't let
стаскивают
us
нас с
go
духовного
and
пути.
to whom we are attached,
Ответственность в
they don't
этом
let us go
ухода от мира очень
and
большая.
in the
Вот
material world,
в таком ключе
and
все
they take us to the
вопрос идет.
spiritual path. The
Ну,
responsibility
знаете,
from
вообще, если
leaving the
рассматривать
material
жизнь
world. And
живого
of course,
существа,
the
может
life
быть
of a
все.
living
Все
entity
находится во власти Бога,
happens
ибо находится по
due to
Его
the
беспричинной
cosmos of the
милости.
Supreme Personality of
То
Godhead.
есть,
And
если человек
if a
ушел, то
person,
смотря
okay,
какая
depending on the
мотивация, с каким
motivation,
мотивом мы боремся
and
за
if
жизнь.
we
Либо мы
battle
боремся,
and fight
чтобы,
for
если
our
мы,
life,
допустим, уходим в
if
лес
we
и
take sannyas and
получаем
go to the
саньясу,
forest in order
чтобы
to go
уйти от
away from
ответственности,
the
нам так легче, то,
responsibility and
конечно,
it's
здесь не
easier for
будет
us, then there
духовного
will
развития, и,
not
может быть,
be
это
any spiritual
естественно после
development after some
пройдения
time
определенного
and
жизненного
some life.
этапа человек может снова
This
родиться и,
person will
и
come
завести
back again
семью.
and get
То есть если
reborn and
мотивация
have a family again and have
освобождения от
responsibilities again.
духовного
But
пути
if the motivation is to
маскируется
liberate, to get the
под,
liberation and actually
уход
going away from your
от
karma, your
кармы, от
responsibilities,
своих
covered
обязанностей
as a renunciation,
прикрывается
and
духовным
it
путем,
will
то,
be,
конечно,
there will be
у этого будут
consequences.
свои
But if
последствия.
a
Но если
person
человек
surrendered
предался
to the
Верховной
Supreme
Личности Бога, то
Personality
в
of
Бхагавад-гите
Godhead,
Кришна говорит, что я
then the
позабочусь о
Bhagavad-gita,
твоей
it says
семье
that the
и
Lord says
о
that I
всех,
will take care of
кому
your
ты что-то
family and I
должен, я
will
отдам все твои
give back
долги.
you all your
Поэтому
debts.
насколько искренний мотив,
So it really depends on the
настолько
motive, on the motivation.
ясно
Nobody
души
could
этой живы.
actually take the debts or give the
И
debts
никто
to
не сможет
the spiritually
вернуть
developed
назад,
person.
чтобы свои
The Lord
долги
will take care of it.
отдать или
The Lord
взять у той
will
личности,
save
которая
that person.
духовно продвинулась. То есть даже пусть тут уже какую-то гирю
And
совершит.
you will go
И
back
он спасет вас,
and
это
you
вы
will
к
go
нему
back
вернетесь.
to Godhead. And if you're
Самовозвышенная
attached to
душа,
this
и вы к нему
the
привязаны, и
spiritual
он вам что-то
person,
должен,
you
то
will
вы
follow
пойдете за ним по
him.
его стопам.
Thank you.
Спасибо. Следующий
Ksenia
вопрос Ксения
asks next
задает.
question. In
В
Bhagavad-gita,
Бхагавад-гите
the Lord
Господь
says,
говорит,
when
придя ко
the great
мне,
souls come
великие
into
души
me,
никогда не возвращаются в этот бренный,
come to this
полный
transient,
страданий
full
мир.
of sufferings,
Но
the
почему и
world
для
full of
чего
sufferings.
создан этот
But
мир?
why is this world
Почему
created?
Господь
Why did the
создал
Lord
души,
create these souls
которые
that
должны
have to
мучиться в этом
suffer in this
материальном
material
мире?
world? And
И
what
для
for
чего
did
Господь
the
создал
Lord to
4
create these
юги,
4 yugas and the
циклы, которые
cycle
повторяются
when these 4 yugas
множество?
repeat? Srila Prabhupada
Ну, мы
said when the
возвращаемся к
elephant praying, he
стиху,
didn't say
где
that
вот
why,
в третьем,
oh Lord, why
третий
did you create
аспект,
these
который Шрила
circumstances? I
Прабхупада
was your
подчеркивал,
devotee
когда
of
он
yours in the previous life.
молился,
So
то он
Gajendra, when
говорил:
we read this
Господь,
text,
зачем ты
when
меня
he
послал
called
в
for
эти
the Lord,
обстоятельства?
then
Я
he
же твой
glorified him
преданный
for
был
it.
в
When
прошлой
we
жизни.
see
То
the
есть
whole picture of
Гаджендра, если
life,
мы
we
будем читать
know and we
следующие
see
стихи,
that
он
each
сначала
event has
призывал
its
Господа, а
causes.
потом
We
его
talked about it
прославлял.
before that this material
Потому что,
world
когда
is
мы
the
видим
act of
целостную
love,
картину
and the
мира, мы
Lord
понимаем,
created all
что у
the
каждого
circumstances.
события
So
есть своя
because we
причина.
have all
И
these
почему душа
desires,
оказалась в
and
материальном мире,
He
нужно
creates all the
очень раньше
circumstances that will
говорили,
manifest all these
что
desires.
это
He
акт
loves us
любви.
so
То есть
much that
какие
and this love
желания
is
у нас
manifested in the
есть,
law of
Господь
karma.
создал
If
все
there are some
обстоятельства,
actions, there
чтобы мы
are some
эти
reactions.
желания
If there are
проявили.
some
И
causes,
более
there'll be
того,
some
Он
effects.
настолько нас
So
любит, что
we're
Он
not
создал
like
этот
stone. We're
закон кармы. То есть
making
есть
some
действие, у
acts
каждого
and
действия есть
we make
следствие.
some steps,
Чтобы мы
and we know
окончательно
that
не
there will be
запутались и не
consequences.
родились
And we start
камнями и не
regulating,
жили в
understanding
стихиях
that
камня.
there'll be
То
some
есть, имея
consequences, good
у
consequences or
каждого
bad consequences,
действия
and we have
следствие, мы
freedom.
маленько
And
начинаем регулировать свою
consciousness
жизнь и
is
понимать,
very
что это
curious.
будет
And I asked Chaitanya
плохое
Chandracharan,
последствие, это
why could
хорошее.
we
Тогда у нас
renounce
опять есть
from all the
свобода
goods
воли
that
и
have
выбора.
happened?
Ну
And
а
he
почему я
said
сюда
it's
упала,
our
я уже говорила.
curiousness, it's
Сознание
our
любопытно. Я
curiosity.
Читань
When
Чандру
we pay
спросила, ну
attention
как
to
мы
the
могли
Supreme
отказаться
Personality
от
of
всего
Godhead,
хорошего,
we
что там
exist with Him all
происходило?
the
Это не
time.
от Него
We
происходит.
do not
То
have
есть
a TV
просто
set
для
at
нас
home.
существует то, на
Then we
что мы
take care of the
обращаем
children. we take care of the husband, of the wife, and when we turn on a TV set, our consciousness
мы
go
ходим,
away
занимаемся детьми,
refocus
женой, там,
from the
мужем.
children, from the
Раз
husband,
телевизор
from the wife,
включили, наше
and we're
сознание
not with
оторвалось, и
them
мы уже не
anymore.
находимся с
Although
ними.
they're calling
Как бы
us,
там
we're
они нас
just
ни
looking at the
звали, нам
TV
интересен
series.
сериал.
Okay, of course I don't
Слава богу, я
watch
телевизор
TV,
не
but I've
смотрю, так
worked for
просто
on TV stations, so I know
работала
what
на
it is.
телевидении,
That's why
представляю,
our
что это такое.
desires to try something
Поэтому
and to try to live without the world,
наше
and
желание
the Lord has
попробовать
fulfilled this
пожить без
desire to live
Бога.
without Him,
И
and He
Господь его
doesn't carry
удовлетворил. Он за
responsibility
это
for that.
ответственность не несет.
He created
Он
this
создал
law of
закон кармы,
karma
чтобы
so
мы
that
смогли
we go
обратно
back
к нему
home
вернуться.
back to Godhead.
Супер. Марина
Marina is
спрашивает,
asking, can it
может ли
happen
случиться так,
as
что по
such
судьбе
that a
женщина
woman
должна
should
привести
bring great
великого
saint to this
святого в этот
world? She
мир,
progressed in
но
the
продвинулась
Krishna
в сознании
consciousness
Кришны
as much
настолько,
that
что
she renounced the Grihastha ashram. Is
отказалась
that
от греха с
growth
Это
or
рост
it's for
или ее
degradation? It's very difficult to
деградация?
say in such situation. Of course,
Ну, здесь очень
if we
сложно
are born
сказать,
in the body
безусловно,
of,
что
of a woman,
раз мы родились в
if we
теле
have our
женщины, то у нас
dharma
есть своя
to become
дхарма.
a mother.
Да,
But
то
right
есть
now
как
everything is so
матери.
individual.
Но
So if
сейчас
you
настолько
are
все индивидуально,
doing
поэтому
spiritual
если
practice,
вы
you don't
занимаетесь
cover your dharma with the
духовной
spiritual practice.
практикой, и этой духовной
So
практикой
I
не
know the
прикрываетесь,
Mataji's that
чтобы
lived
там уйти от каких-то
the
своих
whole life
обязанностей, то эта деятельность и жизнь
without children
совершенна.
or without husbands,
Поэтому
and
есть,
they had a very
я узнаю
dignified
матаджи,
life because
которые
they
прожили всю
dedicated
жизнь
to the Lord. So
без
here there
детей,
are
без
no
мужа, и жизнь их была очень даже достойная. То
limitations.
есть и сейчас она достойна подражания, потому что они
And your
посвящают ее
motivation.
Богу.
You have to
Поэтому
differentiate your
тут, мне
motivation.
кажется,
And when
нет
you accept yourself, your
каких-то
motives,
таких вот
this will be
прям
your
ограничений.
certainness
Просто надо
and
смотреть сердце, свой
certainty, and
мотив.
you
Вот это
should
самое главное, разобраться со своим
work
мотивом
out
и
all
честно
your motives
признаться
and
себе. Как
maybe
только вы примете себя,
communicate and talk to some
то есть это и
devotees
будет
and understand your
уверенность
motive.
и
You know, I
полноценная
had a
жизнь
situation like
дальше.
that.
То
There
есть
are
надо
some
разобраться со
conflicts
своими
and
мотивами, может быть, поговорить с
in some
кем-то из
situations, and
преданных,
I started to
открыть
think
сердце
about
и понять, чтобы от себя не
started to
прятаться.
think
Потому что я
about
один
why
раз
people do
столкнулась с
not
такой
follow
ситуацией.
the
Ну, понятно, конфликты,
why they
они
don't
происходят, там
do
и в
it
семье бывает,
the way
и
I want,
напряженные
although I
отношения и
asked
с
them, I
преданными
requested
бывают, и
them,
на
and
работе.
then I
Я
asked,
стала
what
задумываться,
did I
что ж
request,
такое
and I
происходит,
for a
почему
month
люди не делают
couldn't
так, как я хочу,
understand
хотя
my
я 10
request
раз
and
уже об этом
my
прошу.
necessity
Я потом задумалась, а что
and
же
my
я
need,
хочу?
and it's all
Я месяц
under
не
the
могла
guise of
сформулировать свою
motivation
потребность,
and some good
представляете? То есть
phrases,
настолько у нас
and
это
of course I
все
was ashamed
завуалировано
to
этой
confess,
типа
and
хорошими
then I
мотивациями.
started
И потом
to
я просто поняла, что мне
understand
не хватает
my request and
признания.
my
Сначала было
need,
потом
and then
стыдно признаться, но когда я
to
поняла свою
express it in a
потребность,
civilized way so that it
потом
doesn't
я
get in
стала
conflict
учиться
and
эту
doesn't get
потребность как
runs
бы
over
выражать
other people's needs.
цивилизованно
And
и
if you have
экологично,
some
чтобы не
doubts
переезжая
about your
потребности других.
dharma
Поэтому вот если у вас
to
есть какие-то
be in an
сомнения по
ashram
поводу своей дхармы, пребывания, может быть, там
just
вашими,
talk to
нет,
some devotee and understand
из доверенных старших
your
преданных,
true
поговорите,
need.
откройте сердце,
And
поймете свои истинные потребности.
the
И нет
goal is
проблем,
not
что
the
у нас есть
problem
материальные
to solve the problem.
потребности.
The
Именно
goal is
задача, а не
to
проблема.
link the
Задача
need
эту
and the problem
проблему,
with
свою
Krishna,
потребность связать с
and
Кришной.
that
Вот и
way
все.
your
И вам
need
помогут
will
эту
get resolved and get
потребность связать с
met
Кришной, и вы
in
будете
the
счастливы,
most
ваша
benevolent,
жизнь
the
продолжится
best
на
way.
совершенном пути.
Thank you
Спасибо
for
за такую
this nectarian
сладостную лекцию. И
lecture, and
сейчас,
I will
знаете, я
go
от
away
вне
from
регламента, и
the
вот
timetable.
лично
I
у
would
меня
like
такое
to
желание появилось
ask you
попросить вас
to give some
какие-то
address
пожелания,
and some
какие-то
wishes
напутствия
to our viewers, our
нашим
listeners,
зрителям
to
многочисленным.
finish our lecture with this.
Что-то, может быть, пожелать нам, посоветовать, чтобы так вот закончили эту лекцию.
For us,
Ну, для
there's
меня
this ease in the
появилось
spiritual or in
облегчение и
material.
духовное,
I
и
didn't have
материальное. Я не
any
скажу, что у меня
complex
жизнь была
life or
сложная,
a
нет.
difficult life.
Там были
You know, I
моменты
had a good
баловной
life.
судьбы
Of course, I
даже.
had some
Там было все хорошо. Приходилось что-то
tribulations,
переживать, конечно. И я люблю переживать
and
неприятности на ошибках других,
but I had
потому что
the
очень боюсь.
easing of the
Ну, вот
situations
некоторое
when I
облегчение произошло,
accepted.
когда вот
And when
есть
I talked to
такое
Sadhu
слово
Maharaj, he
«принять
said
себя».
to me,
То есть когда
I had a
Саду
conversation with
Махарадж,
him.
как-то мне
He
удалось с ним
said
побеседовать,
to
и он
understand
сказал,
your
один
shortcomings,
момент
and the other moment
это
is to
понять
live with your shortcomings.
свои недостатки,
And of
да,
course,
понять, а другой
when you
момент с
are in
ними
Hare
жить.
Krishna for 20 years, and then
Потому
you
что это очень
manifest
сложно, когда ты думаешь, что ты уже
qualities,
там
and
20 с
you
чем-то
say,
лет с
oh
Хари
my God,
Кришной, и ты уже
how
такой, и потом
how
происходит
longer
ситуация,
can you
ты
do it?
проявляешь какие-то
How
негативные
can you?
качества, ты думаешь,
So
все,
sincerity is very
вообще, и
important
сколько
when you
можно.
recognize
Вот на
these
самом деле
qualities
это
in you.
все
It's not bad. You have to have
процесс
intelligence
такой
and meditate
искренности
to
очень важен.
differentiate
Поэтому, когда
what's
мы в
good
себе
we have
признаем
and
эти
from
качества,
what's bad we
что
have.
у нас это
And the bad
есть,
is not
это
really what
неплохо.
we have. It's not the
То
bad.
есть
It's not just the banal
нужно
explanation.
иметь разум,
It's not the bad, but you can transform the bad into the good. And this quality we can engage in service in something good. So, for example, our friends, they take our bad qualities, they accept them,
банальной, слишком привычной,
and
это
they
плохое
say that
можно
in some situations
трансформировать в хорошее,
you
потому что мы это плохое качество
they
где-то
shouldn't come
можем
close to
занять
us,
как
but
хорошее.
if
И
there's a war,
общаясь с хорошими
you could
преданными, имея
go
хороших друзей, они
with
принимают наше
this
это плохое
with
качество,
this
понимаете?
friend
Они знают,
because
что в
he's so
каком-то месте со мной
reliable.
лучше не связываться,
So
но если будет
good
война,
friends and
то этого
senior
человека можно
devotees
позвать, и он первый придет на
that
амбразуру. Поэтому
you can
хорошие
trust.
друзья,
They
канишкам с
help you
канишками долго общаться
to
нельзя,
analyze
потому
your
что вот
bad
эти качества
qualities or
будут
good qualities.
усугубляться. То
So
есть хорошие
sometimes,
друзья, старшие
there are
преданные,
situations
кому
that
можно открывать
you
сердце,
cannot really
разобраться со
open up your
своими
heart to anyone,
потребностями.
and you
И
suffer
если
from
вдруг,
rolling
для
these
меня
thoughts
тоже
in your
было
head,
открытие, когда
and
бывает
how to
ситуация,
get
когда
out of this
никому открыть
circle.
сердце, нету
So
рядом вот этих
sometimes you just
близких
have
друзей,
to give
и ты
compassion
страдаешь от
to
своих этих
yourself and
умозаключений, не
say,
можешь выйти
baby,
из
you have
этого
done so
круга,
many good
то
things.
надо дать,
Okay, so you made
суметь
one
дать самому
mistake.
себе
Don't worry, and
сострадать самому себе и перенять
I
свое вот это
believe in you,
качество,
and
сказать, малыш, ты чё, ты же
believe
столько сделал
in
хорошего
you,
тогда-то,
I
тогда-то, а
know
сейчас там
that
ты
you
ошибаешься, ничего
continue. And
страшного,
sometimes,
продолжай, я в тебя верю. Я вот на
I go for
пробежке,
running,
когда
and then
провела себе такую
I
эмпатию,
show
то я
empathy like
вернулась
that
другим,
to
эмпатия — это
myself.
сострадание.
And
То есть,
I
когда
say,
нашу потребность, а в основном наши потребности в
of
признании,
course,
когда мы сами себя
we do
признаем,
some
что да,
stupid
мы
things,
такие
and
дураки и где-то тупые,
such
но есть и хорошее.
when we show
И когда мы
empathy
это
to ourselves
хорошее
and we recognize
тоже
the good in
увидим в
us,
себе и
we
дадим
see the good in us,
перспективу, то
and we
мы
give the
становимся
perspective
какими-то целостными
to us, and
личностями,
we
и мы
become
можем
the whole
сострадать другим. Представляете?
people
Поэтому вот
again.
этот
Then we
самоанализ
can empathize
на
with
платформе
others. We
принятия себя
can give
мне просто
compassion
вот
to
он
others, and
вот
that helped
вытягивает в
me
некоторых
in
ситуациях.
difficult situations. Of course,
Хотя,
it
может
looks
быть,
like
это
a
похоже на
psychology, but
психологию,
we
но с другой стороны, мы
analyze
себя же
ourselves from the
анализируем с точки зрения
spiritual
священных
scriptures,
писаний,
from the
как
holy
свою вот
scriptures,
эту плохую
and
какую-то часть
how to
ума,
get that
ну или
bad part of the
сознания занять в
consciousness
служении
in the
духовной
devotional
личности
service,
Бога, в служении
and we
преданным. И
accept
тогда
this
мы
bad
получаем вот эту
quality,
вот
and
обратную связь от себя самого,
we
мы
engage it
принимаем
in
это
devotional
дурацкое
service
качество, занимаем его и
and
такие идем уже
analyze,
нормально.
give yourself empathy, and
Поэтому просто анализируйте, давайте
you
себе
become
эмпатию, вот
whole
это
and have
сострадание,
good
и вы будете
friends
более
that you can
целостны.
open
И
up to
имейте
open your
хороших
heart to.
друзей, с которыми можно открыть сердце. Ну
Thank you
все,
so
конец.
much, Gaura Priya Mataji.
Спасибо
Thank you
громадное,
so
Мадхурам
much for
тебе.
this
Спасибо, что
nectarian
нашли время.
class.
Дали такой
And
интересный класс.
it's a
Ну
great
для меня это
Спасибо.
честь.
collaboration, a great
Да, за
friendship
ваши теплые слова
with
и за
you and
пример
Valmiki
вашего
Prabhu.
сотрудничества и дружбы с Вальмики Прабhu, как вы много делаете. В Омске я
Do you
приведу
want
большой
us
пример.
to tell us a
Спасибо
story
еще
Давайте я
about
раз.
вам расскажу
Valmiki?
историю про Вальмики.
Valmiki
Ой, я
Prabhu.
думаю, это будет
Yes, we
здорово для
want
всех
this.
зрителей, конечно.
We want
Все
this story.
очень
То есть, знаете, Вальмики,
Valmiki
Вальмики
Prabhu is
Прабhu —
a
это
very
действительно
interesting
очень необычная
person.
личность, и я знаю его очень
Before
давно,
coming
еще
to
до
Hare
того, как
Krishna,
он
he
пришел
was
в
a
Харе
very
Кришна, и
extreme
там у него
person,
были
and he's
такие,
being
ну,
invincible. He
экстремальные
was
дела, скажем, в
engaged in
материальном
some
мире, он везде
criminal activities.
экстремален, понимаете?
And in
Поэтому
my
вот этот
previous
свой
life,
экстрим
I was in this
он смог
atmosphere.
занять,
And one
непобедимость, он
time I
смог
had a
занять в
great
служении
test
Кришны. Видите,
with
сколько
Valmiki.
пользы.
He
Ну, это зная
had a
там его
birthday,
прошлое, как бы,
3rd of
там участвовал в
November.
разных
Of
там
course, we
криминальных разборках,
we
то есть
gathered in
такая
the
личность яркая.
altar room.
Ну, а я
And
тоже в прошлой жизни
if I asked him to
пересекалась
come and say
в
that
этой атмосфере немного,
and
тоже
say
там
that
бывала.
the
И
devotees
вот
have gathered,
один раз у меня
and
была проверочка
I
на
know that he would
вшивость
say, "Oh,
с Вальмики.
he'd
Ну,
shy away," and he would say, won't come."
значит,
And then I
у
call
него
him,
было
that
день,
there
я
are
это знала,
some
3 ноября.
criminals
Мы
that
собрали
came,
преданных, у нас дома в алтарь, у
approached
нас
me,
большой алтарь,
and
на
there
9
is
человек,
some
40
arguments
собираются.
with them for the
Но
old
эта идея,
deeds.
как всегда,
So can
посетила
you
в
come
последний
and
момент,
save
прямо
me?
перед его
Could
днем
you come and
рождения. Я
support
думаю,
and
как бы
help
его
me? And
позвать?
he
Я просто
said,
скажу, что пришли преданные.
of course, there's
Я
no
это, он скажет,
question. And in
уже
slang, he
стесняется,
said,
это было очень давно.
no
Вот я ему
bazaar,
звоню и
so
говорю,
meaning
Вальмики,
no problem.
тут,
And
короче,
so,
братва ко
and
мне
I
тут
said,
подкатила, и там
please
разборки за
come
старые
tomorrow at
дела.
12 o'clock.
Говорю, вы можете
And of
прийти,
course,
девочки?
in the altar room, we gathered,
Настроился на
and I
серьезную
hid
разборку вплоть до...
all
Ну,
the
такие
footwear, all
дела
the
были
shoes
раньше.
the
Ну, вот у меня, к
devotees
сожалению, тоже такие
left
знакомые были.
before entering.
Ну, вот он такой
So,
идет сурово
and
настроенный.
also the
Раз мимо
coats,
проходит его
I
преданный. Я думаю,
hid all
сейчас
the
он увидит
coats,
преданных
put
и
them
поймет,
away,
что у меня тут сборище
and
преданных,
I
а не
asked
этих
everyone to
бандюганов,
come 1
которые
hour
должны были
before
ко
that.
мне
He
домой
doesn't
прийти на
suspect us
разборку.
that we gathered for his
Ну,
birthday. I
Вальмики
look through the
проходит мимо
window,
этого
I'm
преданного,
very
слышу, с
nervous,
ним
and
поздоровался, все. Ну, и потом заходит к нам.
I see
Я
that he's
говорю,
coming, and with his fists are
идите быстро на
gathered
второй этаж,
strong
потому что
like that
преданный же всегда
together. And
опаздывает.
because
Думаю,
he was
сейчас он,
set
Вальмики, будет
for
видеть,
the
что приходят
serious argument with
преданные.
the criminals,
И
and
вся моя эта
unfortunately, fire head. And before a
Вот он пошел
devotee
на
passed
второй
him,
этаж, и
I
я
thought,
пошла
oh
с
my
ним, и
God,
он говорит:
he just saw a
Гаура
devotee.
Прия,
He probably would
все
suspect
будет
that
хорошо.
maybe
Типа,
it's a
где эти
gathering of devotees,
бандюганы? Я
not
говорю, они
the
сидят
bandits, not
внизу
the
в алтарной.
criminals. But
Он говорит, вы их в
Valmiki
алтарную
passed
завели? Я говорю, да.
this
Пусть получают
devotee,
даршан
and I know
божеств.
that
Он
he
говорит, ну вы
greeted him, and then
сумасшедший.
he entered, and
Так
I
я
say,
молился
please
всю
go
ночь, я
to the
предавался
second
Господу
floor
читанию,
right
и я
away,
чувствую
because I knew
сердцем,
that,
что
you know,
будет
some devotees
нектар,
are
будет
sometimes
какая-то
late,
рила.
and
Он меня
he
от
stays
радости все
on the first floor.
колотит.
He would see
Ну
that
вот,
the
и он
devotees are coming,
настолько
and I went
как
with
бы
him, and he says, Gaura Priya,
мужественно
everything
собрался
will be
как бы
good. Where
защищать,
are
потому
these
что там
bandits? And
разборки-то
I
не
said
детские
there
раньше
in the
были. Там
altar altar room downstairs. And he said, did you bring them to the altar room? And yes, I brought them to the darshan of the deities. And he said, are you crazy? But I prayed the whole night. I surrendered to the Lord Chaitanya, and I feel with the heart nectar, and there'll be some new. And I was, my heart was in joy. He was so manly, because the arguments in the past between the criminals were so violent, but the door to the altar was closed, and then I opened the door, and now I think that, and I thought that there will be some happiness, but it was really, very serious and very focused and very set for the serious argument with the bandit, and the door opens and there are 40 devotees out there, and they're all screaming Haribol, and he's looking for these bandits, and I push him inside the altar, and everybody starts singing happy birthday. He says, I sense that there'll be some nectar. So this story about a true friend, and I told him about this argument with the bandits, and he came alone, and he wasn't afraid, and he's a true friend that you could open your heart to him. He's amazing, and it's great that you have this marathon. Listen to him and use this chance. Open your heart to him. Thank you for the story, Gaura Priya Mataji. Thank you so much.
Спасибо, мы вас тоже очень любим.
All your
Харе
projects.
Кришна, всего доброго.
Примите поклоны.